Welcome to the Economy and Politics Show. I'm Ottoabasi, Abasiekong. This edition will discuss the private sector perspective on the new Nigeria national minimum wage. And joining me virtually for this conversation is Mr. Adewale Oyerinde. He's the Director General of Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers, and thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Let us begin with your perspective on the accelerated stabilization and advancement plan recently presented to President Bola Tinubu by the Finance Minister and Community Minister of the Economy, Mr. Oyerinde. It's supposed to support large and small businesses and also unlock more opportunities in the economy. But as we wait for further details of this document, what are your expectations from the private sector being the ones that are drivers of the economy?
Thank you very much. We think, as you said, we can't really delve into the document because we've not really seen an official presentation of it. So it's a bit tricky making definitive comments. But for what we have gleaned, we think it's the direction to go. Globally, businesses or countries, as it were, are doing all that is necessary to get themselves away from the LDC tag, the low developed, less developed country tag. And how exactly do you take yourself away from that realm of least developed countries to a developing country? It's basically investing in the sectors that are critical to drive growth. And that sector is SME, as it were. So it's a plan in the right direction if well implemented, if well monitored, and if the performance of that plan is well appraised. Not only appraised by government or its agencies, but also getting the private sector to be part of the appraisal mechanism. Because if we want to benefit from it, then we are the one to, we should be in a better position to share the realities of that plan, the constraint of that plan, and the opportunities inherent in it. We are in the best position to continue to engage government in that line. So a good plan, we just pray and hope that, like many other plans in our country, this will not be just one other plan.
It's very critical, like you said, Mr. Adewale, because there's been clamor for fiscal policy to come in to complement what monetary policy efforts have been done. And it's expected that this will time through 6 months. So we'll be monitoring to see the impact of this. And hopefully, like you rightly say, it makes the right impacts on the economy. Now, let's look at the ongoing national minimum wage negotiations. Of course, the federal government has expressed its commitment to paying more than 60,000 naira minimum wage, which it proposed, which organized labor did not agree with. They had this their stance on 494,000 naira. And of course, the nationwide strike that happened last week, Monday, which really shut down the economy. And they've stayed action for now, negotiations ongoing. But I want to know the position of the private sector because you are part of the Tripartite Committee and the whole negotiations. Private sector keeps driving activities in the economy. So what is your position on the minimum wage?
Well, I think it's also very important to state this and state it very clearly. That what the committee was inaugurated to do was meant to meet and recommend a new national minimum wage. We are not created or inaugurated to fix a new salary or to award salary across board or to recommend general salary increase. That is not the point, and Nigerians should understand this. It is the minimum wage for the most vulnerable worker, the least protected sector of that kind of workers. And it's the protective mechanism that is done globally so that no employer pays below, either employer in the private or public sector, pay below that rate. It is a flat rate. It is not necessarily a rate, a salary for a wage for a man with 4 children. No, it's not. It is the floor wage, the entrance wage, and the expectation is this. And the spirit behind this conversation of minimum wage is this. And look, whatever happens at that entry point, nobody should enter employment below this level. So progressively, as you progress in your career, through the instrumentality of collective bargaining at the private sector level, and the instrumentality of also appraiser awards arising from productivity. And every December, wages will progressively increase every year. So it is not the maximum, it's the minimum that nobody should enter employment earning below this rate. It's very important. And that is the position of the private sector, that we are setting a minimum. And what we offered was a 100% increase from the last minimum wage of 30,000, which is 60,000 now. No business, except you are in one or two sectors that we've seen. No business in the SMEs, in the nano industries, in the medium scale industry, no business made 100% in profit in the last 5 years. With the proliferation of taxes, you just need to meet an average business owner in the street and sit down with them to ask, what are your challenges? So then you get to understand the real perspective. So our perspective is this: things are not very rosy in the economy. Now we must define our objectives and pick our heart. Unemployment is hard. Low salary is hard. The economic crisis that we find ourselves is hard. What exactly do we need to do? Our position is this: first, we must protect jobs. It's very important we protect jobs. And whatever we need to do to protect jobs, we just need to do it. The pain have to be across board. So it will also surprise you that in the last 2 years, over 700 manufacturing companies, they've closed shop, according to the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. But over 300 became distressed. The president of the Small Business Owners of Nigeria reported millions of their members closing their businesses. They are not statistics. They are investments that are closing. So for us, it's look, let's protect jobs. We are dealing with the minimum. We are not dealing with maximum. So let's come up with a minimum wage that will protect jobs, enable organized businesses to create jobs that will not also destroy the informal sector, because we are clamoring that the informal sector should be encouraged to be formalized, to become formalized. So if the informal sector is seeing the crisis that wage award is causing in the informal sector, what is the motivation to be formalized? So we need to look at the broader issue beyond the figures. And we have also informed government and urged government that all the interventions that they want to do, intervention in transportation, intervention in food security, intervention here and there, that government should expedite action on those interventions so that Nigerians can get more relief. But our position is this: we must redefine our objectives, and our objective, our offer of the 60,000 is an offer that will help the nation beyond salary allocation, fast track the trajectory of growth for this country.
Yeah. So if I get very clear, of course, 60,000 naira, 100% increase from 30,000 is that position. And you've highlighted several issues. I mean, what happened to the manufacturing sector and the need for expedited efforts to address the critical drivers of economic activities in the country. Now, that brings me to the question around reviewing the national minimum wage. Some economists have talked about the need to link this with productivity, because as you are adjusting the minimum wage, the link with productivity is very important so that we can see value from it. How does the private sector approach this? How do you approach this?
It's unfortunate that in the whole conversation of this wage issue, this minimum wage, nobody is definitively talking about productivity. Nobody is bringing productivity quotient into it. That if an employee wants a 50% increase in wage, then what is the productivity quotient? What are you bringing in? I think in the public sector, I think we all need to be refocusing our conversation to actual productivity. If I'm paying you 60,000 per month, even though it's low, but what are you? Is it a social investment? Private sector is not. So productivity has not really taken the center stage, and we have consistently tried to bring productivity into the conversation. What exactly is the employee bringing to the table? If 60,000 is the minimum wage, then let productivity be a factor that will drive wages up. Let productivity be a factor that will be the driver of the wage. So if an employee wants 100,000, let productivity be the driver of that 100,000. If an employee wants 8,000, let productivity be the driver of 8,000. That is the position, and that is how it is done globally.
Very important. Now, what additional incentives would the private sector require to invest more in the economy, create more jobs, and expand operations? Because I know that, of course, this minimum wage conversation, like you rightly said, businesses have challenges, operations, cost of doing business. You will need to be incentivized. We hear from the Presidential Fiscal and Tax Reforms Committee a recommendation for a 5% reduction in company income tax, which will go to 25%. How did you receive that? What kind of additional incentives would the private sector be needing at this time?
You know, it's like, the system now, current system is like you are giving with right hand, you are collecting with the left. The 5% reduction in corporate company income tax, needful, necessary. But at the same time, you have over 200% increase in electricity tariff. So whatever you thought you will have saved from the gift, whether it's a Greek gift or a German gift, whatever you think you will have given, government is taking it back somewhere else. So those are the contradictions. So one of the biggest things we reform government should do for us is first the reversal of this astronomical, abnormal, and unnecessary increase in electricity tariff. A member company wrote to us. They used to pay 2 million, about 2.5 million for tariff as electricity tariff. Within 1 month, when they brought the new tariff, they brought over 12 million for them. They brought over 12 million. Over 12 million naira to pay in a month. And this is not a manufacturing business. It's not they don't manufacture, just offices. Now, imagine the faith of a manufacturing business that is running plants almost 24 hours. So it is contradictory, and it absolutely negates the 7-point agenda of Mr. President to create an environment that is conducive for businesses to thrive. Remove the tariff, this electricity tariff, let's revert back to status quo. And then all the other issues as enumerated in the plan, in the stabilization plan we saw, very beautiful initiative, but we just hope that certain new levies, fees here and there will not come up to frustrate the efforts of the government within the context of a 7-point agenda.
Mr. Adewale, I think there's an agreement between the private sector and, of course, organized labor in that issue of the electricity tariff. And I think the government would really have to look back at this, because it has to be a win-win situation, reversing the tariff. We know that we're looking at private sector, free market economy, but of course it has to be a win-win situation, and hopefully we'll have a headway there. But as we look at, we're in June and we're heading to second half of the year, what is the outlook for you? Private sector players going through all these expectations that policy stabilizes and enables you to do more in terms of investments in the economy. What is the outlook?
One of the things this government have done, and they've done right, is the issue of the reforms. Whatever anybody says, the removal of fuel subsidy is one of the best decisions we would have taken. We'll have taken it years ago. Probably if we had taken it years ago, we wouldn't find ourselves in this quagmire. So it's one of the best decisions we've taken. The many other reforms that we've seen is one of the best decisions that we have taken, the boldest steps in the last 10 years. Now, to get the best of these reforms is to make sure that as you are implementing those reforms, there are no other policies that are contradicting or neutralizing the effect of those reforms. As I mentioned, as you are creating platforms for the private sector to increase, because the truth of it is, for every 10 jobs created, the private sector creates a minimum of 8 of those jobs. Now, how do you address critical macroeconomic issues? Feed those sectors that have the capacity to provide jobs for you, to create jobs. Once you are creating jobs, you are invariably resolving your insecurity problems. You are invariably resolving your consumption problem. Because for me, basic economics says that once the engine, the wheel of production and consumption is moving seamlessly. You are on the trajectory of growth. Your GDP will grow naturally. So look at what are the contradictions. If I'm supporting organized businesses, then no other policy should come to frustrate that support that I'm giving organized businesses. Now, the SMEs, Madam did beautiful intervention, giving SMEs grants. And most of these SME, 1 or 2 or 3 or 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50% of them is probably operating within the context of the band A. So the money you've been given, the grant you've been given, the loan you've been given, a quarter of it will probably go into power. So Madam will say, yes, I have given grants. The CBN or the commercial bank will say, yes, we have taken to the government's plan to enable the private sector. We have given grant and loan. But meanwhile, other policies are creating bottlenecks, making those loans very difficult to pay. So those are the issues. And when people come, some armchair experts, and they demonize the private sector, we say, look, you don't really know, you don't really understand what the private sector is doing. So first, there must be coordination, proper coordination of those incentives so that one sector is not negating the positive effect of another sector.
Yeah. Mr. Adewale Oyerinde, Director General of Nigeria Employee Consultative Association, thank you so much for this conversation and giving us very clear insight on the private sector perspective on the new Nigerian national minimum wage. It's very clear we need coordinated policy approach. It's also very clear that policies that will bring a win-win situation for private sector, organized labor, and other key stakeholders are needed at this time. And of course, like you rightly said, we have to ensure that this whole minimum wage issue is also inclusive, considering the challenges that the private sector faces. So we look forward to very clear statements from government and policy symmetry and reforms that move the economy forward. But the private sector still has the role in driving the economy. Thank you once again for the time, and hope to have you in future conversations as we see policies unfold on the economy. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms to engage further on this show. To become your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socio-economic developments around you because it is a wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi, Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.